The following is a conversation with Sawal Bacha. He is a Climate Finance Research Analyst working in carbon markets. He has a master's degree in environment, politics and development. Sawal is Pashtun, a population that originate from near the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. We spoke about where he is from, the presence of the US and terrorism growing up, carbon markets, capitalism and Marxism and much more. This is the Inspire Alex podcast. And now, dear friends, here is the great and powerful Sawal Bacha. The Inspire Alex podcast.
Very big pleasure, bro.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It's an absolute pleasure.
So, to be honest, bro, I have to be honest with you. Before I knew you, I didn't know anything about Pashtu, Urdu, all these things, bro. I know you were from Pakistan, but I didn't know these. You consider yourself a different people, bro. So, what is for you Pashtu people? Where are you from, really?
All right. So the Pashtuns or the Pukhtuns, depending on your pronunciation, are divided between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And what happened was that during the British colonialism, there was a lot of resentment and wars from the modern day Afghanistan side of the Pashtuns to the British. And so what they did was there were also a few battles. There was the Battle of May 1, in which Malala, the first Malala, by the way, who was a female warrior, joined the battle, and then the Pashtuns notoriously won from the British during that battle. There was also the Battle of Ambela in Buner, where the Britishers faced defeat. So there was a lot of resentment from the Pashtuns to the British.
You said the first Malala.
Malala.
What? So the first, is there a second? What is it?
The second Malala is Malala Yousafzai, who won the Nobel Prize, who was the youngest Nobel laureate in the world. She's now living in London. She's also Pashtun. She's from Swat, Shangla.
What did she do for the Nobel Prize?
So she used to write articles to BBC, if I'm not wrong, and she just used to document what she's going through every day, because during that time, Swat, Shangla, they were occupied by the Taliban in Pakistan, which are called the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP for short. And Swat was under the occupation of Taliban, and she just used to write short letters and just about what's going on every day. That's how she got some recognition. And then later on, she was attacked by the Taliban and she was shot in the face, actually. She survived that, and then she got a lot of recognition from.
Oh yeah, I think I've I heard about this when this happened. Okay. And so you were saying there was some wars going on with the British and the Afghanis.
Yeah. So what happened then was that the British actually created the Durand Line. And the Durand Line basically separated Afghanistan and Pakistan, modern day Afghanistan and Pakistan. They created this line to just tell the Pashtuns from on the other side of the Durand Line that, all right, we're not going to come up beyond this point, and there's no need for wars anymore. So that's how the initial divide of Pashtuns between Pakistan and Afghanistan was made. After that, with the formation of Pakistan in 1947, all of the land to the east of the Durand Line to the north, to the southeast, was inculcated in Pakistan.
Okay, so now it's Pakistan.
Now it's Pakistan and that's Afghanistan. Yeah. That's how the countries were separated.
And so would you say then that the Pashtuns are Afghanis?
Well, the Pashtuns are originally Afghanis. Actually, the word Afghan is actually synonymous with Pashtun. We Pashtuns, all of they consider themselves as the children of Afghan. So all of the Afghans, all of the Pashtuns are Afghans, if you look at it that way. Yeah.
Okay. But now, is there a little bit difference? Is there still nationalism kind of for Afghanistan, or now are you guys fully Pakistanis?
There is nationalism for Pashtuns, most certainly. Even Pashtuns from the Afghanistan side, they have lived with us after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. There was a huge migration and refugee crisis for Afghanistan, and Pakistan took the most number of refugees until, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago. and all of them, they were Afghanis. They live with us peacefully. I have deep friends, really good friends too. So we do realize that we are the same people. We speak the same language. We have
Which is
Pashtun, and a lot of our cultures is almost the same. Of course, there is little variation from one place to another, but essentially we're the same people. But alongside that, there was also really strong straight propaganda being generated, and there was a lot of efforts for us Pashtuns to accept that we are Pakistanis and they are Afghanis. All right, we do speak the same language, we do have the same culture, but we have to accept in the end that we are Pakistanis and they are Afghanis.
and before this line that Britain created, was there ambitions for the Pashtuns to have their own country and believe that they're their own people?
There was no need to have our own country because there was no idea of separate countries back in the day in that specific space. The whole creation of nation state was a colonial program, and before colonization, I mean, this idea of separate state for us simply just didn't exist because there were no borders. There was nothing dividing us. We didn't need to have a separate state. We were there like anyways.
Yeah.
Peshawar and Kabul, they were twin cities, and even up till like the time where I guess before the refugee crisis, I mean, Peshawar and Kabul were sister cities. I knew families who used to like spend the winters in Peshawar and summers in Kabul.
Okay. And when the refugee crisis you're talking about, is it recently with Afghanistan, or were there refugees from Afghanistan even before?
Before the Soviet invasion, there were no refugees. There was peace. So before the Soviet invasion, there was no such refugee crisis from Afghanistan, at least.
Okay. So, okay, interesting. And then so now you have the Pashto people living peacefully in the north of Pakistan, right? Or not so peacefully.
Peace. Peace is a very ambiguous word, but we're living. Yeah, we're thriving.
So there is tension.
There have been tensions for a very long time, and there always seems to have been tensions for some reason, one reason or another. But right now, as of now, it's relatively better as compared to 2008 or between the time 2006 to 2008. Yeah.
Okay. But so, and the Pashto people so mainly live still within that near the border, and that's where the mountain range is, right?
Yeah, but a lot of them, like for business purposes or for jobs, they've moved to other parts of Pakistan too. There is a huge Pashtun diaspora in Karachi, which is the biggest city, in Lahore, in Islamabad, in almost every major city. I mean, these days, my friends usually joke to me about it. If you go to any store, like general stores, like for example, over here we have off licenses. Almost all of them will be owned by Pashtun people.
Really?
Yeah, so they're almost everywhere now. Business attracts people, and that's where people go.
Would you say Pashtuns are business oriented?
That's one characteristics attached by Pashtuns that other people at least say.
Okay, but before that, so they were mostly living like in the mountains. You have villages and mountains, right? You grew up, you told me.
Yeah.
in
I grew up in Peshawar. It's a plain city, but it's on the foothills of mountains, and my village is in the mountains. But there are, I mean, most of the northern Pashtunkhwa is mountains, and the southern Pashtunkhwa is plains. So I was from the northern Pashtunkhwa, so that's why I was closer to the mountains. Yeah.
and it's quite close to Afghanistan, and the past 20 years, Afghanistan has been quite a topic of discussion with the U.S. presence there. Did you feel the U.S. presence growing up there, or was that really going on just in Afghanistan?
Yeah, no, I definitely did feel the US presence. Since my city, Peshawar, it's the biggest city closest to Afghanistan. There were a lot of NGOs, American NGOs operating in my city to gather intel or whatever. And there were also some very big scandals with a few of those NGOs, and they were basically busted by being all of those. They were like members of the CIA or some shit.
Really?
Yeah. Definitely felt that. Apart from that, we also used to like buy NATO supplies from like big supermarkets. They somehow ended up there, and you used to see like the name NATO almost everywhere with the American flag.
Really?
So we definitely felt the presence, yeah.
And then so you mentioned the Taliban, and because obviously it seems like the Taliban was a big presence in that area.
Yeah.
So maybe they were thinking, okay, let's go investigate what's going on over here. Maybe there's some Taliban in on the
Yeah.
Pakistani side.
There was like this whole wing of Talibans for Pakistan too, which I mentioned earlier, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP. That was like this whole wing of Taliban, which were operating inside of Pakistan, and they only worked like for the Pakistan's cause. Yeah,
Okay. And was that around you growing up? Do you,
yeah.
yeah.
That was, I guess, they were in the peak around 2008.
Okay.
They had control of quite many few cities in Pashtunkhwa. And unfortunately, there were acts of violence and bomb blasts and killings almost every day. So my childhood, especially, I mean, usually you see children when they grow up, you usually go to the park or some places like that. And I didn't get a lot of that because of there was always this threat, like, what if a bomb explodes? Like,
Really?
yeah, bro.
Bomb explodes.
Bro, there was a suicide bomb blast every day when I was growing up. Literally
What?
every fucking day,
A
bro.
suicide bomber.
Suicide bomb blast every fucking day, bro. Not even kidding, bro. There comes a point when you get so desensitive or desensitized to all of these things that people, they just become numbers. Turn on the TV at 8 p.m. All right, 13 died. All right, today just 6 died. It was a good day. Then if someone like 40, 50, 80, they're like, oh man, that was a bad day. They were bomb blasts every day, bro.
Okay. And was the suicide bombing, is that the Taliban?
Yeah, most of them were then from the Taliban. And then there are a lot of other militant groups too. This usually either they're like specifically there for this one objective. For example, for Kashmir, is this disputed land between India and Pakistan. There are like other causes. Like TTP is the biggest one that's in Pakistan. Yeah.
Okay. And so growing up, there's suicide bombings everywhere. So obviously, maybe even your parents, I don't know if they're the ones who tell you to stay inside, but even for you, like, were you scared of going out or did you want to go out?
Of course, when you're a child, you live in a place where you're so desensitized, like you want to go out, man, like you want to go out anyways. But I did realize this that yeah, this was a threat too.
And what about at school? Like, was there threats at school or was the school the safe place?
Um, Actually, one of the worst attacks that Taliban ever did was on a school. So there was definitely threats on a school that was done when remember I was in my A levels. It was 2000 and let me recall. How many years has it been?
Yeah, too long. But your A
So-
levels, you mentioned you did it in the capital.
No. I did my A levels in Peshawar.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 16th of December, 2014.
19?
No.
14?
It was either 14 or 16. I think it was 16, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Okay. So damn, Taliban, you have suicide bombings everywhere. Me, I can't even imagine this, but and so okay, so there's the Taliban, you're growing up, you're feeling the US presence. And were you there when the US pulled out of Afghanistan?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. It was surprising, honestly, what happened.
Everyone was surprised, bro.
Yeah.
Like this, even I think America was surprised, bro. Like how they pulled out, they were like, okay, we're out.
Yeah.
No forecall. I know previously Donald Trump, he had started removing, that was a long-term plan of leaving Afghanistan. They started pulling out soldiers, but eventually Biden just called it.
Yeah, it
and they
was
were
very,
gone.
it was very abrupt, very abrupt and very sudden.
Yeah.
It could have been managed better by the US, and of course, a lot of responsibility falls on the president of Ashraf Ghani of Afghanistan at that time too. So yeah, it was very surprising, and it all happened very quickly.
Yeah, so quick. Everyone was saying the Taliban can't take over
Hmm,
in like what, 24, 48 hours.
yeah,
It was a done deal.
it's done deal.
Yeah. Why did they underestimate the Taliban's power?
That was the biggest mistake, I guess, by the Afghani president Ashraf Ghani. I guess he did underestimate the Taliban for quite a bit margin, I guess, and they just felt like, we are more technologically advanced and we have the world's back, and we would do it. But it didn't go as planned. And then there are also a lot of conspiracy theories, of course, I can't back it right now. But a lot of people said that, there were peace talks going on in Doha between the Taliban and the US regime, or the US, whatever. And a lot of people said that there was already a deal between the Taliban and the US in Doha. So, of course, no one has proof of that, or no one has solid proof of that. But the Afghan government definitely did take Taliban very for granted. They thought that we would get this easily.
But if there was such a peace deal, is it now that Taliban after took over? Is that the fact that Taliban just didn't respect it, or did they agree
Actually,
that?
no. What happened was, during these peace talks, the Taliban agreed and actually proposed that, all right, half of the government would be from the Ashraf Ghani's democratic government, and we would take in charge of half of the other government. Ashraf Ghani rejected that proposal, and he said that no, there's absolutely no way you can run half of the government. So I guess that was also, again, they were underestimating them. They thought that they had no negotiating powers, but they've been on ground for more than 20 years, and when you've been on ground for more than 20 years fighting, so you definitely are a stakeholder of the country, and I guess they took that for granted.
And you mentioned that a lot of responsibility goes on the Afghani president. Can you explain that more? Because I just thought it was the Americans that took that decision.
Uh, it was, of course, an American decision, but throughout the tenure of Ashraf Ghani, he he's a very neoliberal person, by the way, and he also wrote this book. He studied from the U.S. I'm not sure which uni he went to, but it was a good university, and he also wrote a book. It's called, I think, "Fixing Failed States" or "Broken States," something like that. And the thing that he basically, like, advocated for the most was building institutions, and he failed to do so during his own tenure. If he had built institutions, they wouldn't have crumbled up so easily when the Taliban took over. There was absolutely zero employment in Afghanistan when the Taliban took over, and no institutions operated. So I guess he could have done that better. If he just could build his institutions better, maybe it wouldn't have been so difficult. It wouldn't have been so easy for the Taliban to take over.
Mm. And you mentioned that it felt very sudden, the removal. How did that look from your side of the map? Did you feel, because when the Taliban took over, you saw the videos, everyone wanted to leave. Obviously, America was quite limited. Some people got there, but you're on the border, so I assume a lot of people try to come over to your side. No.
Yeah, people did. Let me tell you something very interesting. A lot of people tried to go from here to Kabul too, just to pretend that they're like from Afghanistan and just fly off
When
to
you say here,
America.
you mean
I mean, no. I mean Peshawar,
ah
like the other side, from Pakistan to Afghanistan,
ah.
to fly away and just, like, have no papers or anything. The Taliban took everything. Gotta get out of here. They just flew off to the UK or US. Yeah, bro, that happened.
Yeah, bro. And then okay, and then apart from that, how do you rate? I mean, there's some criticism that the Afghani president, didn't have any employment in his country. Now that the Taliban took over, like 2 years later, what's going on there? Is it somewhat stable? Are they doing a better job than everyone expected?
So before, like, the Taliban took over, all of the wages of the government employees of Afghanistan were paid by US aid and other forms of aid. As soon as the US withdrew, that aid was gone, and the banks were not developed properly. There was no revenue stream for the government. Uh, Taxes or revenue collection was very low. So when the Taliban took over, of course, when the aid withdrew, so there was nothing to, like, give people to work. Of course, I wasn't in Afghanistan myself, but I have a lot of friends from there who were there during that time too. They've told me that when the Taliban took over, they were asking for like bread from the people. And now people say that there is peace because, of course, the Taliban were the people who were fighting. Um, now they say that we have peace and we are encouraged to do business. And I guess the business sector is doing somewhat better. I don't know about the bureaucracy or the state, the state is being run, but generally the business is slightly doing better.
Okay. And what about the U.S. presence in your area? Is that also completely gone?
I guess that is reduced to quite an extent, but that was at the peak during like when I was growing up around 2006, around that time,
Okay.
10.
All right.
After that, it started to withdraw from like my city slowly, slowly too. Yeah.
Okay. And so the whole reason, I mean, why there was U.S. presence in that region, right? 9/11, Osama bin Laden, and they were basically looking for Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, which is why there was this whole thing. But actually, they got him in Pakistan,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he was hiding there the whole time.
Yeah.
How did
Yeah.
they end up finding him?
There was this doctor, actually, polio doctor. I'm not sure if he was a polio doctor, but he was a doctor, and what he used to do was he went homes to like separate houses to do some checkups or something. I'm not sure. I think he was a polio doctor. And when he apparently visited one house in in Abbottabad, which is quite away from the Afghanistan's border, and he informed the authorities, like, Osama bin Laden's over
I
here.
went to the house and I saw
Yeah,
Osama bin
bro.
Laden
Yeah, I saw a suspicious guy.
living upstairs with a beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
So that's how he was found.
And then was that also big news when they found
Again,
him?
that was again something that happened very fast, bro.
Mm.
The news broke out after the US, like, accepted that we killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. For some reason, I always thought that it would get like a lot of shit to Pakistan and like, get something like, I mean, imagine if Osama bin Laden was hiding in any other country. They
Yeah,
found
yeah,
him
yeah,
there. All hell's loose, man.
yeah, yeah.
But nothing like that towards Pakistan.
Mm.
You see, like, everything's chill. Like, even in the speeches, the name of Pakistan was not mentioned. We killed him. That's all, bro. And
Or he was hiding here. No one
yeah,
really
no one
knows.
knew where he was
Yeah,
exactly. No one knew what they did with his body. People say they threw him off in the sea.
yeah.
Um,
That's weird, but I mean, whatever. I guess.
yeah.
And I know now. Okay, Pakistan peaceful. It looks like maybe some things are stabilizing, but it's still not. The world is a complicated place, right? Everyone knows. Okay, you have India versus Pakistan, and also people know. China is doing a lot of production, manufacturer in the world. How do you see the future of Pakistan?
So Pakistan is definitely an interesting topic in geopolitics. It's situated between Afghanistan, Iran, China, and India. And all of these countries are very important or controversial to some. And even the existence of Pakistan in between all of these countries, I mean, that's one of the reasons for the state or the state that is like right now, it's a security state. It's not a social welfare state or it's not a developing country. I still wouldn't call it developing, considering the recently, like, there is no
Yeah.
new industries being built. What's
And you're talking about the current government of Pakistan, which is kind of now run by the army, really.
Yeah, I would call it the establishment. The government has little say, anyways. It's always had little say. The government was never actually there. But yeah, it's a security state, so all of their attention and their focus is on security. The day that, people, even common people, we realize that, all right, our country actually needs to develop now. We need to develop industries. We need to take positives, or like, bring out hand in friends with all of our bordering countries, maybe enable trade, maybe at one point of a free trade between all of these countries. Of course, there's a lot of potential. It's a big country. It's the sixth most populous country, and it has the biggest youth population in the world. There is a lot of potential to do business, to be innovative, to develop new industries, but it's all being lost right now.
How so?
Well, first of all, economically, it's doing really bad. I mean, of course, the political crisis and the geopolitical crisis are there, but apart from that, economically, it's doing really bad. We just give you a short example. I mean, all of the current GDP is around $186 billion, I think. And from next year, we are so much in debt. Literally all of our revenue goes into debt servicing. And from next year, we'll have to pay $25 billion to the IMF every year. Considering that we have a total GDP of $186 billion, it's practically impossible.
Okay, where does this come from? Just previous projects, lending
Yeah,
from IMF?
yeah. I think Pakistan has had 17, if I'm not wrong, projects with the IMF. And it has come to a point where now, from the past, I guess, 10 years, we're taking debt to service debt. Now we're in the circular debt. We cannot escape it. There's no way that we're going to escape it, naturally, I guess, at least, yeah.
I mean, but on the bright side, there seems to be whenever they need the money, they'll find the money, really. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
even Pakistan, from what I know, it has corruption is everywhere, but there's a lot of like black market in Pakistan. What I mean by that is like it's not on the books.
Yeah, it's usually gray. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that saved Pakistan during the 2008 financial crisis was the gray market, the gray economy. There's a lot of like tax evasion, a lot of under the table deals. Um, there's huge drug smuggling and trafficking too. Arms, it's very big business in Pakistan. So, and all of this is, of course, not documented. And it's not even a norm to document like normal transactions. One of the conditions of IMF was to like increase the financial transparency. And it suffered a lot with that. That was something that added Pakistan to the grey list, the international grey list. And we couldn't get out of that for a long time because we couldn't establish financial transparency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. Being kind of pushed away by the economic world is kind of tough. And now when we look at the future, especially after COVID, everyone's, especially the West, is taking a step back from manufacturing China. And now is it Africa next? Is it everyone's talking about India, But I know China's working on like a new Silk Road, like the One Belt, One Road initiative where they want to connect basically the whole world through their manufacturing route. And Pakistan is in the middle of that talk.
Yeah, there was.
Because they're trying to be friends with Pakistan, but they're not friends with India. China and India have a lot of issues too.
Yeah. So there's also a big land dispute between India and China.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess one of the smart things that Pakistan did was during the Kashmir land dispute, there were 5 parts of Kashmir, and Pakistan got 3 of those 5 parts, and then they gifted one of those parts to China. So they got China on their side by doing that deal. That was really good. We had good relations with China for a long time. China actually they were building the CPEC, which is China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And this was the fastest route for China to get into like the Arab world or the Gulf through the Gwadar port. And there were some failures from the government side and bureaucratic failures, which led to delay and
Of Pakistan.
of the building of the economic corridor,
Oh,
CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And it's still under construction. It's not being used fully now, but still under construction.
okay. Yeah, I think I heard something about that. It was this big port they're building, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that it was China financing this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a textbook of China. We know they finance these big infrastructure
Yeah,
projects.
yeah.
The countries take them in, but then they have some kind of, if you don't pay, well, we're going to get control of some natural resource or whatever.
Yeah.
And So yeah, so with Pakistan, they weren't able to pay, right? Or what's going on with
Pakistan
that?
actually leased the port to China, so they've leased it before they can take over that port.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
But so they don't have something in the deal, I don't know the specifics, but where they say, oh, if you can't pay back, then we'll get control. No?
I'm not sure of the
Uh,
specific documentations, but
okay.
I know that it's on lease.
But so, I mean, talking about China, they're the number one emitter of carbon, bro. And I know you're big into, climate change and market. You studied this in your dissertation,
Yeah.
right? You did
Yeah, I did
with
my
the study of carbon markets.
yeah, I did my dissertation in carbon markets.
And so, what is carbon markets?
So it's relatively new. Basically, what happens is that there are compliances on companies that emit more CO2 or emissions per year than like they're actually supposed to. And then usually these companies they cannot directly reduce their emissions. So what they do is that they finance or create a forestation project or anything that could either capture or reduce emissions in the global south, which is cheaper for them, and then offset their emissions by those projects. So what happens is when you successfully reduce or offset emissions, you get like mitigation outcomes, which are called internationally transferable mitigation outcomes (ITMOs), and those ITMOs are basically carbon credits. So the unit for them is like 1 ton of carbon offsetted per year, and they are sold then in markets from the global south to the global north. Usually, there are like consultancies that are involved in like being the middleman in this, and they arrange carbon credits for companies in the global north, and they buy them from the global south. Yeah, those are what carbon markets are.
And so, these credits, do people just get them by offsetting, or is there a base amount of credits that you get?
So it started with the cap and trade system. The European Union was the first to adopt it. I guess it was in 2005. And there was a specific cap on emissions, basically, for all of the organizations, depending on their production and everything. If you exceeded that cap, you were supposed to pay either a fine of which is now I think around 208 euros per ton, and or you could like buy carbon credits, which range from in the compliance market it ranges from about 60 euros to about 100 euros, depending on the integrity and the project. So yeah, you used to like buy those credits in order to offset the tons that you've exceeded your limit.
Okay. But you said there's a fine.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a bunch of countries and different international things here. So what happens if you don't want to comply? So if you don't pay the fine?
So I just had to talk about this with a guy who's been in the cover market scene for quite a long time, and he told me that usually in the Eastern European countries they usually like brush it off the table, maybe like take some money and just ignore it. But in bigger countries, for example, Germany or Netherlands, they take it seriously and they actually do fine companies, even in the UK now.
Mm-hmm. But so this is basically just the governments that are agreeing to fine the companies, but not all countries do this, right? I imagine China's not doing this.
China is actually pretty big in carbon markets. China is actually one of the biggest producers and consumers of carbon credits.
Really?
Yeah, China is right now it's the biggest, and I think the second after that is India, if I'm not wrong. And then there's Africa, some African countries. UAE is invested a lot in some African countries for Red Plus projects, which will offset emissions. And China is actually the biggest player in the carbon market scene right now.
Okay. And are they big because they apply it to their companies, or are they just selling emissions, right? Because if they have a lot of space, maybe they'll like buy a forest and say, "Hey, look, we're emitting this amount, give us money," right? And then
So there have been a lot of scandals in the carbon market scene too recently. The biggest verifier of voluntary carbon credits, Vera, was in a big scandal recently. There were forests in Southeast Asia where they were actually abusing human rights of the indigenous communities over there. and they had verified that project and that was going on, and there was actually more deforestation than forestation in that specific place. There are efforts been going on to develop a proper framework for voluntary carbon markets too now. COP28, which happened quite recently, worked on that too. It's going in positive directions. We have good hopes for the future. But right now, yeah, it's not. I mean, I wouldn't say all of the projects were like, legit. There were definitely fake projects in there too.
Hmm. I mean, the objective of carbon markets feels like it's something to limit, and de-incentivize carbon emissions in the economy, right?
Yeah.
So this is really because there's a big push to go, to fight climate change.
Yeah.
But do you think this has been, effective? Has carbon markets kind of reached its goal?
So the treaty that almost all of the countries abide to right now is the Paris Agreement. Where you from, Alex? And their goal is to reach net zero emissions by 2050. There are bigger compliances for the global north because they have higher historical emissions and present emissions. The global south is, of course, not as developed, so they have some leverage to, emit more to reach that scale of development or to reach that standard of development before they can, cut down their emissions. It has been effective to some extent. I would definitely say that, but a lot of people have profited more of this whole journey to net zero than they have made positive impact.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And one criticism that can be brought to climate change is that it's gonna limit the poor and it's gonna benefit the rich, really, because who's gonna look if we raise or if we stop fossil fuels, for example, what'll happen? Electricity becomes more expensive. Who does that bother? The poor. Who does that limit? The poor. Who doesn't care? The rich, right?
Yeah.
So there is something with climate change that, okay, we're making things more expensive. Who's gonna pay?
So yeah, I get that. What we're doing over here is that we're ignoring that the current climate change is a byproduct of capitalism, and the rising prices or in the energy sector, or this will is or it'll if it affects the poor more, this is also a trait of capitalism, I would say. I guess we need to hold capitalism more accountable than climate change for restricting the poor to be more poor and the rich to get more richer.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, this was also kind of the essence of what I wrote my dissertation about. You know, not to get into the specifics, but yeah, what's more important, climate or the battle against poverty? It is an interesting thing,
Very
but
interesting. Yeah.
I saw this interview. I don't remember exactly, but it was with Bill Gates, who is a big advocate with the fight against climate change. And the interviewer was basically saying, you're doing all these things for climate change, but like many rich people, you have a private jet and all these things. Your emission and carbon footprint is actually huge.
Yeah.
And his response, well, that's fine because actually I offset my carbon more than most people. So I actually have a negative carbon emission when you think about it like this. So, I mean, when I hear this, I think, okay, well, so it's fine if I have money, I can just offset all my carbon and emit as much as I want.
Yeah.
Do you think kind of the elites are taking advantage of this?
That's the biggest criticism on carbon markets too. Basically, you offset your emissions by buying carbon credits. We need to approach carbon credits and offsetting emissions in a way in which it surpasses, my the thing that I offsetted my emissions. No, you did not offset your emissions. What you're doing is you basically planting trees which are necessary for the world to be for the world to be a livable place. Um, what I did my dissertation on was, since it's very much related to topic, I'll just say a bit about it. Um, I advocated for the rights-based approach, and taking a step ahead of that, I basically proposed a public-private partnership for carbon markets and carbon offsetting projects too. So what I basically proposed was that these
Can you say what's the rights-based approach?
rights-based approach, yeah,
Rights-based approach.
yeah, rights-based approach.
So what is that?
So that's basically like, for example, if I am a part of an indigenous community that lives in the mountains, in the forest somewhere, and there is a Red Plus project or a forestation project, I need to be like my carbon rights would basically be that since I'm part of this forest, since I'm part of all of these trees around me, I have rights over these trees and forest. My ancestors for hundreds of years have been in the same place. That is what gives me a right over this forest. So rights-based approach was derived from the carbon rights, and then it basically says that since you're part of this project or part of this forest, which makes you in somewhat way part of this project too. So you need to be compensated for the mitigation outcomes too. You need to have a part and a say in the project too. So that's where it comes out from. And I basically said that carbon credits needs to be divided between these indigenous communities and whoever is the developer of the project, and that money needs to be spent in a way which basically induces holistic development through building of schools, hospitals, roads, and essential basically fulfilling essential needs of those indigenous communities.
Mhm. That's actually really interesting, but I feel like that's going to be hard to implement because the project developer, all of a sudden, before he could just do his project, and now he's basically saying, "Hey, part of this profit you have to give it to
Exactly.
those guys," and he's thinking, "Oh, they're not doing
Yeah,
anything."
yeah.
But that's good though, because so if we're going about climate change, it's like, okay, well, you're gonna do this. At least we're gonna have it benefit around you.
Yeah. So after these scandals, as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of scandals in the carbon market scene. There's an increasing demand of high integrity carbon credits. And high integrity carbon credits are the ones in which the developers take into consideration the carbon rights of the communities or the people that are involved. So, of course, those scandals were very, very bad for this whole carbon market scene. But the good thing that happened was that now the market is moving towards high integrity credits, which takes into account the carbon rights of the people who are involved. So I do see a future movement towards that approach. And it's also important because there's this huge unequal ecological exchange between the global north and global south. I mean, the global south produces, I mean, I'll give you example of Pakistan. It produces less than 1% of global CO2 emissions. And we suffered from one of the worst floods in the history of the whole world. So, considering how much we emit and what we're getting for those emissions, it's like very unequal. So, these projects are the only way that Global South can actually develop. So, I see it as a road towards holistic development for Global South.
And so in a way, carbon markets is really the only way now where you can actually, profit from, all this climate change agreements going on.
Um, no, I would say that there are also other aspects. I mean, you do not profit much in adaptation. Carbon credits are now being released for almost a lot of things. There are also like carbon credits for preservation of aquatic life or corals. Now, the most recently was they've added carbon credits to shipping, which is like if one ship is opting to like a more eco-friendly way of operating and delivering cargo, they will get carbon credits for that. So now it's expanding, but a lot of people have also profited from which is not directly related to climate change, but ESG. A lot of people made a lot of money in ESG.
Yeah, it's a big topic of discussion. But let me ask you, is carbon markets only in the private sector? Or do governments
So
trade as well?
there are two aspects. The carbon markets is divided in basically two parts. One is compliance and one is voluntary. So compliance are usually dealt by governments, and if not direct governments, then like the government is indirectly involved. Voluntary market, on the other way, they operate privately and independently.
No, it's crazy. And talking about the global south emissions and the global north, it's a big problem with now the fight against climate change, where we want unity, we want everyone to cooperate. But the big thing is, well, the past 100 years, the global north basically industrialized and developed thanks to fossil fuels, thanks to all these emissions that we weren't counting back then. And now they're saying, oh wait, well, we're all gonna get hit by climate change, even you, Pakistan, for what we did. So now we want to all play in the same playing field.
Yeah.
But the global south is saying, well, hold on a second. We want to cooperate, but we're not gonna, limit our growth to an extent.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the compliances on the organizations or companies based in global north are not exactly the same that the global south faces. The global south does have some leverage to use more fossil fuels and reach that form of development, but again, it's negligible as compared to the emissions with global north. So of course there does exist some level of disparity, but I don't think so. We can reach, or the global south can reach that level of development just by burning fossil fuels. We usually take the whole legacy of colonialism for granted, and the way that they actually developed those industries, or even the industrial revolution in the UK, it was based out of colonial extraction of the global south and the colonies. So it's not just the burning of fossil fuels that led to development of the global south, and that's not the only thing that will lead the development of the global north, and that's not the only thing that will lead the global south into development.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that it did help, but we must not limit our belief on how we can grow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
Yeah.
other opportunities to
Yeah.
take part, because this fossil fuel thing is important.
Yeah. Basically, we need to change our view of development and how to achieve that development.
And you have quite you know a personality that you like different views, or at least different to my views, because I know, even I look at your your home screen on your phone. Look, you can criticize, and you have many criticisms to say about capitalism, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to call you any names, right? But but we could call you a communist, or that there's many ideas about communism, socialism that you can say are positive, and that we can look at that. And would you say you're more about criticizing capitalism, or that you prefer?
First of all, I'm not a communist. I'm a Marxist. In current circumstances, I think I cannot be a communist until there is a communist state. Secondly, there's a quote of Marx which makes a lot of sense. In order to understand capitalism, you have to understand. Uh, yeah, I guess that wasn't a quote of Marx. I'm getting that wrong. In order to understand capitalism, you have to understand communism.
Mm.
So it's only when you understand or study more or read about communism that you understand that, all right, all of these criticisms on capitalism, they actually make sense, and the world have been a better place without these, or without capitalism at least. Yeah.
Okay. And you say that you're more a Marxist.
Yeah.
So what's the difference, or biggest difference, from that to
Uh,
communist?
Marxism is more of an umbrella, and
An umbrella of ideas.
an umbrella of ideas. Yeah. And it's not exactly like, you cannot pinpoint, all right, this is Marxism. But if I was to define it, I would say it's an ideology based off humans as social beings and the world or the nature around us. So it just encompasses both ecology, or ecology, geography, and just sociology, just the human interactions that we have between each other. Yeah, I guess you used a nice word, an umbrella of ideas.
And now you've lived in the UK, quite a capitalist country. It has a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Is there we can attribute a lot of its problems to capitalism,
Yeah.
or at least someone that has your thoughts could. Is there a risk of applying all problems to capitalism?
Just when I was coming on your way, there was this guy sitting right behind me in the DLR, and he was just constantly, like, mumbling and talking with himself. And you must have realized when you walk around London, you see at least one or two people who are like, that they need help, like, they're not fine. And I usually think, like, what is it with Metro? Even when you see videos of New York on social media, you realize that, a lot of people over here are crazy, man. They're not doing all right in their head.
Yeah, there's a lot of like crackheads
Bro, yeah. And it's not only just crackheads, like,
yeah.
normal people who don't do any drugs, who live a normal life, but
become crazy.
become crazy, bro. And I cannot think of any other reason than apart from London being a metropolitan city for their insanity. Drives people crazy, man. A lot of problems do exist because of capitalism, I would say so. Marxism would not solve all of your problems. A lot of people say, all right, we're going to live in a utopia in Marxism or in a communist country. What many of people don't realize is that the goal for both a Marxist trajectory and a capitalist trajectory is the same, which is mass consumption. You studied economics too, you must have read the Rostow's stages of development, where the last stage is mass consumption, all of the work is automated. You basically don't need to do anything, you just consume. Every person is a consumer. There's no need for someone to be a producer because everything is already produced. Both of these.
And that's coming soon.
Yeah, Elon Musk recently said, like, there would come a time where none of us need to work.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so that is mass consumption, basically.
And you see what he's been doing with Tesla bots, the
yeah,
robots.
Yeah.
No one's gonna need to work anymore.
Yeah, even China, bro. Like, there's companies in China, they're off the radar, but they're doing some crazy works in robotics and automating work.
So we'll just we'll have the ability to only consume.
Yeah, that's all you would need to do unless and until you want to do something.
And then, so you say that's the similarities between Marxism and capitalism.
Capitalism, yeah, that they both, both of their end goal is mass consumption. It's just the way that they reach mass consumption is different. Capitalism approaches for an individual approach. They advocate for an individual approach where everyone will innovate, basically, and through that innovation, through that perfect competition between me and you, my firm and your firm, we will reach that point of mass consumption. Whereas communism, on the other hand, incites your innovation by being your true self, basically. So there's this theory of Marx alienation, where it says that you get alienated from your work under a capitalistic society, which is, for example, you love creating podcasts, but you studied economics and development economics. What has that to do with podcasts? Nothing. But you knew that if I study this, I land a good job, make a good money, and I live a good life. So hence, you're alienated from your true self. You're alienated from your true Alex under a capitalistic society, which will restrict you from being innovative.
But we're in a capitalist society, and I'm here doing this.
Yeah, but you could have done this a lot better.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, and you could have done this a lot earlier.
Yeah, true. But I think everything happens for a reason at a certain time,
I guess it all comes down to the French saying, c'est la vie.
C'est la vie.
Brings back a lot of memories,
yeah, very good. Okay. And then, do you think companies and firms can still exist under socialism? Or do we need to have a completely, so they can still exist?
They can exist, but they would be, under socialism, every means of production is state-owned. And under communism, almost everything is state-owned. Means of production being companies, they do exist. Separate companies can exist. There can also be a competition between them, but they will be state-owned. The competition will not exploit the workers and the consumers, basically. That's the idea.
Okay. And I have a couple of things to say about this. One thing is that I believe one of the ways people can get rich, and really is how to get rich today, is not, through a salary, but it's through equity. If the state owns equity, then to me, you can't get rich. How are you going to get rich?
There would be no incentive for you to get rich under a perfectly communistic society. Why would you
But
want
do
to
you
get
think
rich?
the incentive is maybe within humans that we want to be rich?
What would you do with a lot of money?
Money is, you have access to things. You
All
can
right.
get things.
If the state can arrange the access to things for you, would you still want a lot of money?
Yeah, because look, I think no matter what, humans live in a hierarchy. So there's always people at the top, right? And so the state, for it to provide for everyone, is just gonna give kind of, how I think they're gonna do it, is kind of mediocre things for kind of everyone. I think there is
But let's just shift that to like mass consumption, where we already have everything.
so
Do you
everyone,
think?
if everyone has the everything they want, they can want. Yeah, and I actually think that's possible. I think there's unlimited value to be created, and money. We created money. Everyone can have money, But I guess where we disagree is how we're gonna get there. Because I agree with you, if everyone has it, we don't need to go get it, right? But I guess we disagree on how we're gonna get there. You think the state can provide it? I think everyone, through creating personal value, can achieve it. But okay, and this is one thing I'll bring up, is that a big criticism of capitalism is people say that it's profit oriented, right? And that people are gonna look away these moral things that we usually bring up, whether it be kind of health of people or even climate change. People say, well, they just care about the profit. They're gonna make the decision to go for the profit. But now we're seeing more of a trend of company owners that are really mavericks, like Elon Musk and other people. Now it's becoming a trend, but they're choosing to run their business in the way that they think is right. They think, okay, well, look, he acquired X and now it was losing money, but he's running in a way, okay, it's still working, but it's in its own way. Everyone who would have been an advisor would have told him, hey, you're crazy how you're running it. So what I'm getting to is that, wouldn't it be possible that the best way someone can be actually a communist is under capitalism? Because if you have your company, you can run it how you want. If you're a communist, you can just run it like a communist guy. I saw a guy who took a 70% pay cut and started paying his employees six-figure salaries.
Even there was this one crypto billionaire. He did a lot of that. And yes, that can exist until you can't, basically. Like, even with Elon Musk, what he did with X, he had to go to Israel, wear that fucking keychain to tell people, oh, this is someone that gave me, whose children or whose son is hostage. He had to do that.
But to be fair, I don't think that was financially motivated, because
No, but
the
it was.
sponsors still left even after he did that.
Yeah. It was not
left.
financially motivated.
I think it was more,
politically
motivated.
Yeah. It was way more politically motivated.
Because that's a complex issue right there,
Yeah.
So because famously, even recently, the advertisers didn't come back, and he said, you know what, fuck you. So, but
well, for me, that was a publicity stunt. For me, that was something that might attract more advertisers.
the Israel debacle. Yeah.
Even this, he's saying "fuck you."
Mm-mm. Yeah. No, I mean that. I think he genuinely feels that, because even what he's doing now is like a subscription model. It's like, I don't need you. We're gonna do it anyways. That's how they try to control you, right? Through money. So I guess that's another criticism to capitalism.
You just criticized it yourself.
Hey, I'm an open-minded guy,
Yes.
but you did in a way find your home over here in the UK at our university, bro. It's
Yeah,
very. I know I had some teachers. They love criticizing capitalism, bro.
SOAS is a very leftist university, at least academically, I would say. Yeah, I liked it at SOAS.
You found your spot, and you did your bachelor's in Pakistan.
Yeah.
How how was that different
So,
here? And did you expect, I would say, a lot more or a lot less?
I was expecting more student activism at least because my university in Pakistan, Qaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad, there's quite a lot of student activism over there. Lots of student bodies. We have councils which represent all of the ethnicities, and a better word that I would like to call them would be nationalities. And there was a lot of activism too. Just even apart from that, there was strikes for and student engagement, basically. Also political aggregation. In SOAS, I saw that a lot of students found themselves helpless against, like, even for their genuine concerns. And there were occupations in SOAS until 1 year before I joined. And
When you say occupations, what do you mean?
so they occupied the director's office just 1 year before we joined SOAS until their requirements were met. And so that's one form of student engagement.
Hmm. Pretty effective, yeah. I mean, it's more effective than the ones we mostly saw, I guess. It was people standing with the speaker outside and
Yeah.
handing out flyers, you know. One of the first days I got to the university, there's a Marxist group, hands me a flyer, you know. It says, we're a food bank. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what is it? It's like, oh, no, actually, we're the Marxist club.
Yeah,
Like,
I've been to one of their events.
really? I
Yeah.
took their paper. I didn't have anything to take notes. I didn't waste it at least. You went to one of their events. Are they organized?
So the left in the UK faces the same dilemma as the left in Pakistan, or I would say almost everywhere in the world. Um, which is, it comes down to very, very petty issues. They're divided into multiple parties, and especially after the fall of USSR, because the USSR was, like, the single communist party, or the top G they were looking after, all right? After the fall of the top G, they were all divided, and they didn't know what to unite for, at least. And a lot of, after, like, when you have divisions for a long time, you create more distances between each other. And I guess for me, it all came down to ego. I'm too big for your party, and I'm not supposed to join your party. You're supposed to join my party. And then, of course, I'm the bigger boss, or just petty issues like those.
And you found that to be the thing in the Marxist group at the university?
I actually attended quite a few events of, like, different Marxist party. There was the Socialist Appeal and Socialist Workers Party. There were, I think, also one or two others, and all of them came down to, like, the same petty issues I faced in Pakistan.
Hmm. So if it's ego, then that means they want power.
They are overlooking the greater cause.
Hmm. Yeah. So they're not being effective.
They're not being effective. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's good for me, right?
I thought you were open-minded.
Yeah. I still have my position. So. Okay. And was your experience studying in the UK what you thought it would be?
It was good. I made good friends like you, Alex, and I guess I made the most out of it. I
It was
learned a
still
lot.
quite short, right? 1 year.
Yeah. I'm still learning, of course. I would say that I'm learning at any point in my life, but yeah, and it's nice. It's very international. So you get to interact with almost every nationality. You get to learn about their cultures, their languages, their countries. It's quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Learn about crepes.
Oh yeah, bro. I miss those. We need to do that again.
One day or one day. But okay. And if you had to give advice maybe for yourself before you came to do your master's, or for anyone else going into doing their master's, what advice would you give?
That's a good question. Let me think.
Because it is a whole, different system, going to university.
I guess just be open to new ideas, be confident, and trust yourself.
Confident in what way?
Confident in the way that things would turn out good, and think big. Always think big. Apart from that, spend time in making connections. It's very important. You should know what you want to do. That's the biggest thing. And yeah, be more organized. Maybe. I think I still lack in that.
Still, you made it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think know what you want to do is a good advice. Because you need to have somewhere to aim for you to go there. But most people don't know what they want to do, and they still make it somehow. So
yeah, let's plan.
And yourself, bro, what are your future and in God's plan?
So I want to work in the UK for a few years, and then probably move to Middle East. That would be more suitable. And then alternate between Middle East and Pakistan, start my own thing in Pakistan, and hopefully nourish that, make it grow. Yeah.
It's crazy. The Middle East I'm talking to many people, and they're talking to me about the Middle East. Even me, I would consider the Middle East.
Yeah. It's I mean, the biggest reason for me would be it's closer to Pakistan.
It's well connected. It's the center.
Yeah. It's very well built. They have crazy infrastructure.
So where in the Middle East? Do you have any preferences?
Abu Dhabi, Dubai, UAE, most probably. UAE would suit. But then, of course, it's changing so fast now. Saudi Arabia is introduced this new city line. You must know about that. And
it's
then
also
even
where the
Qatar,
opportunity is going to be.
Yeah. Even Qatar, they're growing crazy. So it could be anywhere, honestly.
All right, bro. Thank you. I think and hopefully maybe in 10 years we'll look back at this. We'll see where we are.
Definitely. We're making memories.
Yeah, for sure, man. Took the picture of it to see it. All right, bro.
All right, bro. Had a lovely time with you, Alex.
Bro, thank you for coming on, bro.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Inspire Alex podcast. See you next episode.